You found a property with strong signals. Now the question is, does this deal actually work? Not just the taxes, the full picture. Every lien, every environmental red flag, the title chain, homestead status, curative path costs, and your margin of safety across 5 exit strategies. LeanSuite runs all of this from one screen. Let me walk you through exactly what to check and why. Start on the Property tab with the estimated value. This comes from the County Appraisal District. It's a tax assessment, not a market value. Cross-reference it with comps, but this is your ceiling. Everything else, liens, cure costs, holding costs, comes out of this number. If the value doesn't support the deal, nothing else matters. Now open the Liens tab. This is where most investors get surprised. It's not just back taxes. You might have an IRS federal tax lien. In a private purchase, that lien stays attached to the property and must be resolved. You can't just close around it. If the property goes through a tax foreclosure sale instead, the IRS gets a 120-day redemption right to pay the sale price and reclaim the property, but only if they were properly notified at least 25 days before the sale. You might have judgment liens, HOA liens, mechanics liens, code enforcement fines, utility liens, even a mortgage that was never released. LeanSuite tracks 11 lien types and stacks them in priority order based on your state's rules. In Texas, the tax lien is always senior, but everything else depends on recording date, lien type, and state-specific super priority rules. HOA liens have limited super priority in states like Texas and Florida. They can jump ahead of some liens, but they're always behind tax liens and existing first mortgages. Mechanics liens can relate back to the start of the project, meaning they may out-prioritize liens recorded after construction began. But they must be filed within statutory deadlines and don't override prior recorded mortgages. You need to know the full stack before you can calculate your real cost. At the top of the Liens tab is the Risk Assessment. It calculates your lien-to-value ratio, total liens divided by property value. Under 30%, you're in good shape. 30 to 70, proceed with caution. Over 70, the margins get thin fast. It also shows equity remaining, the gap between value and total liens. But here's what matters. The risk level isn't just about the money. If the property has an IRS lien, the score gets capped at 60. If there's environmental contamination, it's capped at 50. Those aren't just numbers. They're deal-shaping constraints. Before you go any further, check for deal breakers. LeanSuite flags 5 conditions that can kill a deal regardless of the numbers. First, environmental contamination. The platform checks EPA databases for Superfund sites, toxic release inventory facilities, and brownfield assessments within a 1-mile radius. A Superfund site nearby can make a property unmarketable. Second, active litigation against the property. Third, government seizure or forfeiture. Fourth, the property is landlocked with no legal access. And fifth, unlocatable heir interest holders. Under Texas law, any co-owner, even with 1%, can force a partition sale. But if you can't locate any heir, you can't even start. And even when you can, a partition action adds $10,000 to $20,000 in legal costs and 6 to 12 months to the timeline. That reshapes the entire deal. Any one of these overrides everything else. A property can look perfect on paper and still be a no-go. Next, check the title chain. LeanSuite tracks deed chain completeness, the number of gaps, and ownership chain breaks. A clean chain with no gaps is straightforward. But if there are breaks, missing instruments, wild deeds recorded out of chain, unreleased mortgages, that tells you the cure is going to be more complex and more expensive. The number of gaps directly affects which curative path you'll need and how long it'll take. Check homestead status. The county tax roll tells you whether the property has a homestead exemption filed. If it does, someone is claiming it as their primary residence, which means owner-occupied, homestead protections apply, and in Texas, that changes your foreclosure timeline and notice requirements. No homestead exemption? The owner likely doesn't live there. That's a stronger distress signal. Nobody's maintaining the property, code violations are stacking up, and the owner or heirs are probably disengaged. LeanSuite also shows census-level data for the neighborhood: median income, poverty rate, vacancy rate, and median home value. These give you context on your exit market. A non-homestead property in a neighborhood with 40% vacancy is a very different deal than one in a strong neighborhood. Now run the deal calculator. It pulls in the property value, every lien, and builds your full cost to cure. That includes back taxes with penalties. In Texas, penalties, interest, and collection fees compound over time. After 5 years in Texas, they can exceed the original tax amount. We're talking 60 to 80% or more on top of what was owed. It estimates the curative path cost based on what this specific deal needs. 7 curative paths available in Texas, ranging from a simple corrective deed at a few $100s to a quiet title action at up to $15,000. The platform also covers Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina with state-specific curative paths and cost adjustments. Then it adds title search fees, recording costs, and projected holding costs, property taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance for however long the cure takes. The result is your true all-in cost, not just the acquisition price. Then it calculates your margin of safety. LeanSuite targets 40%, meaning your all-in cost should be no more than 60% of the property value. The calculator compares 5 exit strategies side by side: sell as is, wholesale, fix and flip, buy and hold, and owner finance. Each one shows projected ROI. It also runs a worst-case scenario: longest timeline, highest cure costs, lowest value estimate. If the deal still works in the worst case, you've got a real opportunity. Green means go, yellow means caution, red means walk away. Finally, the supporting details. Flood zone. Zone X is minimal risk with a larger buyer pool. Zone A or V means high flood risk, mandatory insurance with any mortgage, and your future buyer's lender will require it too, which limits your exit market. Property type tells you your exit market. Single-family residential has the largest buyer pool. Code violations. Are there active violations stacking up? That's additional holding cost risk and potential municipal liens. Owner count. 5 or more owners drops the score by 15 points because coordinating that many parties to close is exponentially harder. Homestead exemption status. And data completeness. 6 out of 6 means the full picture is verified. Less than that, you may need to pull records yourself. Value, lien stack, deal breakers, title chain, homestead status, cost to cure, margin of safety, exit strategy, and supporting risk factors. That's the full deal analysis, the way a seasoned, curative title investor actually evaluates a property. Most people are working with a spreadsheet and guessing at half these numbers. LeanSuite runs it all from the case detail page. Find the deal, read the signals, research the owners, run the numbers. Everything from one screen. This video is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute investment, legal, or tax advice. Laws vary by jurisdiction and change over time. Property values are county tax assessments, not market appraisals. Lien amounts, environmental data, cost estimates, and curative path costs are based on available data and typical ranges. Actual costs and conditions vary. Environmental data comes from EPA databases and may not reflect current conditions. Always do your own due diligence, including independent title search, environmental assessment, and property inspection, and consult qualified professionals, including a real estate attorney, before making investment decisions.